Hello Internet, welcome to jamiljiral. I am Jamil Silva and today we're going to talk about the recommended memory card size for photographers. Well, there are photographers that like to use small cards during an event, but there are also photographers that like to use bigger cards for events, cards that you can store more pictures. Which one is better, a smaller card or a bigger card? When we talk about memory card, we are talking about an equipment of information technology. And I would like to analyze this memory card and the camera looking in the IT idea. Well, when we talk about a memory card, we have different sizes. When we have a size, when we buy a memory card which says this is the size of the card, actually this is not the real size. You have less than what you buy. For example, a gigabyte card is over 7.39 gigabytes. This means less 7%. When you buy a 32 gig card, you will have over 29.8 gigabyte, less than 6%, over 6%. And when you buy a 64 gigabyte card, actually you're gonna have 58 card, a 50 gigabyte card, which is over 9% less of its capacity. So this is normal. It happens to the computers, to when you buy a hard disk. You have the amount that is announced, but actually you will have less. Actually, you're gonna have less size. Well, looking on this IT ideal, when we talk about memory cards, hard drives, you have to think about backup. People that work with IT, they have to back up things all the time because they know that if they don't back up, they will lose data. The question is not if the card or the hard disk is going to fail, but when it's going to fail. So that is why backup is very important. Backup is when you have the same file in two different locations or more. So if you are an IT guy, you're going to back up everything that you have. Like photographers, if you have files or photos on a memory card, you have files in a kind of hard disk, so you have to back it up because you may lose all of your files. And the IT guys know that when you surpass 6% of a card capacity or a hard disk capacity, it will let your computer slower, and you will also have a probability for error. 60 to 70% is a kind of limit for the storage devices. If you keep storing more than 60 or 70% of the card or hard disk capacity, you may have a failure at any moment, and you also have a slower device to work with. So we don't want that, especially when we are shooting an event. We want faster cards and with less probability of error. We cannot lose our data. So as we talked about that, now let's think about some advantages for a small card, a small capacity card. We have 2 gigabytes card, 1 gigabyte cards, and I think the smallest one is 1 gigabyte card for an event. I don't think it's worthwhile carrying less than that. So maybe 2 gigabytes would be ideal for small cards because they're so small. Well, one advantage for small cards that I can think of is if in case of error, you're going to lose less files. So a 2 gigabyte cards, you're going to lose less photos than a 64 gigabyte card, of course. And the less is going to be better in a way that it's not good to lose at all. So this card is cheaper, but I think all the cards are cheaper now, even the bigger ones. I don't think price is a problem anymore, but they are cheaper, and this could be an advantage. Well, now let's talk about disadvantages for small cards. The first one that I can think of is that you can store less pictures. Yeah, this is a disadvantage to me. For example, I have here in my camera 1 GB card. This camera is 24 megapixel, and each photo is over 30 megabytes, and I can store only 44 pictures in this camera. So it's very little. It's just a few pictures in this for this camera. I don't think I want to have a small card in my camera with so little pictures in here. I wish I could have more. That's why I think this is a disadvantage for smaller cards. Well, another disadvantage that I think of is that I have to pay attention to the number of pictures that I have left during the shoot, and I don't want that. I want to keep my focus only on the shooting, on the event. So this is a problem because, for example, 44 pictures is not a great number. So you have to be careful, because if you go over this number in some cameras, they will keep on shooting, and if you don't pay attention, it will keep shooting and keep shooting, and all of a sudden, when you will realize that you were not shooting at all. If you have a smaller card, you have to configure your camera to stop shooting when there is no card available on the space available on the card is over. So that's why I think it will demand constant attention from us when we use smaller cards. Well, when we talk about the 60% limit, when you have these 44 pictures here, you're gonna reach this limit very fast. So I think this is another problem for the smaller cards. And when if you want smaller cards, if you want to use smaller cards, you're gonna have to use lots of cards. For example, if you want to cover a wedding, and if you take, for example, over 3,000 pictures during this wedding, it means that you're gonna have to carry lots of cards. For example, if you're gonna carry about 2 gigabyte cards, you're gonna need much more cards per event. And another disadvantage that I think about smaller cards, that the companies nowadays are investing more money in the bigger cards, so you don't have faster cards. It's very rare to find a class 10 2 gigabyte cards, for example, so they tend to be slower on this regard. Well, now let's talk about some advantages for bigger cards. Bigger cards are faster, as I told you before. The companies are investing lots of money to let them as fast as possible. So you can buy class 10 and you're gonna have faster cards. Another advantage another big advantage is that you can focus on shooting, because a bigger card you have more pictures, then you don't have to worry about that. For example, a 64 gigabyte card, you can store up to 1,000 pictures if you have a 24 megapixels camera. So if you think about that limit of 60%, it will take more time. It will take more time to reach that 60% limit of the card. You can take, for example, 600 pictures for sure, and you don't have to worry about that before changing for another card. Well, a disadvantage for bigger cards that if you lose the data on this card, you will lose lots of pictures. For example, a 64 gigabyte card, you can store over 1,000 pictures with a 24 megapixels camera. So if you lose 1,000 pictures for the wedding that you were shooting, you're gonna be in trouble for sure, because 1,000 pictures is a lot. Well, they are more expensive, but I don't think this is a big problem at all, because cards are very cheap now, but they are more expensive than the smaller size cards. Well, in terms of backup, they're gonna demand more time for backup, but I don't think this is also a problem. Once you are in the comfort of your home, you can get home and download. Especially if you buy a class 10 card, I don't think this is going to be a problem at all. But they usually take more time for backup, because of course they can store more cards than a 2 gigabyte card. They can store more pictures than a 2 gigabyte card. Well, as we're talking about backup, I'd like to give you a suggestion, especially if you use a smaller card, but actually it will work much better with a bigger card. When I say bigger, it's bigger in storage, not in size. Well, if you take a notebook for an event, turn on your notebook and let it there. And you're gonna have to have lots of cards and number them. Card 1, card 2, card 3. Well, when we start shooting the event, and as soon as you have a free time, go to your computer, insert your memory card number 1, and let the computer back it up. Transfer the files to your computer and come back to your job and start shooting. Let the computer back it up. When you have another free time again, go back to your computer, take it out the card number 1, introduce card number 2, and start backing up again. And then you're gonna do this with card number 3 and number 4, and then you're gonna have the pictures in card number 1 and in the computer. You're gonna have the pictures in card number 2 in the computer. Then you're gonna have a backup in all of your files. Even if you have, for example, 64 gigabytes with 100 pictures, no, but it's better have more cards and back it up, back those pictures up. You're gonna be safe. Well, if you don't have to worry about this backup system, that suggestion that I'm talking about, I think the best thing that you can do is to buy a dual card camera like this, and you set your camera to record in card number 1 and card number 2 the same files, usually in raw files. Then if you have a failure in one card, you have the pictures in the other card. You'll be safer. And I don't think you're gonna have a simultaneous failure in the 2 cards. This is more difficult to happen. But if you have a dual card camera, I think you're gonna be much better. You're gonna be safer this way. Now let's talk about how to avoid error in the card. So I think first of all, the first thing you have to do when you introduce a card in the camera, you have to format the card in the camera. Don't format the card in the computer, because when you format the card in the computer, or use a different camera to format the card than the camera you're going to use, there must be a miscommunication between the camera and the card, and this can cause a system failure, and you can lose all the files in the camera. So if you put a new card in here, it's better formatting in camera. Well, another suggestion is to avoid surpass the 60% limit of the card, because the card will be slower if you go over this limit, and the card can have error and you lose all your files. And if you buy a new card, it's better test this card before you go to an event. In your house, in your office, test it many times, take many pictures, formatting camera, transfer the pictures from the computer, formatting camera, do this many times before you go to an event. And maybe the card can have a problem from factory, and this is very normal. Well, it's better avoid taking the card out of the camera. I like to transfer my pictures using a cable. This way I avoid taking out the camera and risking this metal part of the card, because if you mess with this, you can lose all of your files. And it's also interesting, if you have to take this card out, don't touch this part, because this metal it doesn't go well with the fat in our fingers. You can damage all of your cards, all of your files, if you touch this a lot. Well, and of course you have to avoid heat. If you leave your card in a closed car in the sun, you will have problems. Maybe not now, but when you are shooting and demanding a lot from the card, you're gonna have problems. You can lose all of your cards, all of your pictures in the card. So those are simple things, but maybe you can avoid problems and lose all of your files. Now this is it for now. I hope you have enjoyed those suggestions that we talked about, that I talked about in here. And I hope to see you in the next video. If you like the channel, if you like the suggestions, please subscribe. I'm very new to photography, and I'm still learning. I'm studying a lot. I'm studying many things about photography. And if you have things to complement my suggestions and my ideas, please write there. And if I said something wrong, you can also correct me down there, and we can have a discussion. No problem about that. So I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.